This week in wrestling history, we're going to kick it old school and celebrate May 19th, 1996. What happened that night? The infamous curtain call in Madison Square Garden. It was 29 years ago today that Kevin Nash and Scott Hall wrestled their final match under the WWE banner, under the Diesel and Razor Ramon characters. And then this happened. Razor comes out, Triple H comes out, heels and baby faces hug in the middle of the arena of all arenas, Madison Square Garden, and Jared set the wrestling world ablaze.
Dude, that was the night that World Wrestling Federation truly became World Wrestling Entertainment. They broke the seal that night, man. I mean, look at those guys. They're like young pups back then, but it baffles my mind that the way that all went down with Vinnie Mac saying, oh, yeah, if it means something to you, Shawn, why y'all go out there and do it? Then he punishes Triple H, which thank God he did because of what happened with Austin winning the King of the Ring that year. But, man, if I was Triple H, man, my hind end would have been raw for a long time about how that all went down.
And it was. And Andy, before you jump in here, I've listened to a lot of interviews with Triple H here recently. Not sure why. It just, my algorithm, it's popped up and I've listened to a bunch of interviews. And he said specifically there was one time where he went back to Vince and he lost it on him. He said, I'm okay with taking this punishment on the chin because, I'm the one that has to take it. As long as you can promise me light at the end of the tunnel, I'll stick around. But he said there was one time that he had a specific match that he had the worst wrestler on the roster and he had the worst referee on the roster. And he said it was just disaster the whole time. And he went back to Vince and he said, you have to give me a chance to succeed. You can't put me in a horrible position and then just laugh about it and expect me to do it. I can't when you're giving me the worst referee, which he didn't name the worst referee, but the worst wrestler, Andy, I don't know who the referee was, but the worst wrestler, he mentioned it, was Ahmed Johnson.
That was like Goldberg before Goldberg.
Yes. Yeah. For those of you who don't know who Ahmed Johnson is, yes, Goldberg before Goldberg. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm going to make you both feel really old because I was a couple months away from being born when this picture was taken. So I was not around in the world when this happened. However, like seeing the significance of it, all these years later, I mean, it's probably the most infamous picture in wrestling history. One that Austin probably goes back and just hugs every time he sees it because it made his career at that point.
Yep.
But like you're looking at four. And again, we use this term all the time, but with these four guys, it's true industry changers. Like these four guys changed the industry forever in this moment, and then what they would go on to do as well. So, it's one of those that I think everybody's always going to remember. It's one of those moments that, in the world today, if this happened, nobody would bat an eye just because of how much the curtain has been pulled back. But for that time period and during that time, I mean, it's they broke the cardinal sin. Like they broke the cardinal rule and Triple H paid the price for it. But it's one of those that you just look back and I always smile when I see it just because of what it meant and what it led to down the line.
Yep, for sure. And Triple H, in one of those interviews, he said that in his meeting with Vince, where Vince told him that he was punishing him, Triple H said the last thing he told Vince when he walked out the door, he said, he said, I don't understand why this is such a big deal or why everybody's upset about it. He said, because what we did, the unscripted moment that happened, got the biggest pop of the night in the Garden. He said, the wrestling business is changing. Just know that the wrestling business is changing.
And Vince said, not yet, buddy. Not yet.
Vince said, maybe it is, but not yet. Triple H says, oh, but it will, because the ripple effect that this caused. You guys already mentioned Austin. Don't even gloss over the fact that yes, Hall and Nash went to WCW the next day and created the NWO, which everyone still knows about and talks about today. And it changed pop culture from a WCW perspective. bought WCW like 4 more years of longevity. So the wrestling world, Andy, even though you weren't born yet, you can still see the effects that this one event had on the wrestling landscape forever.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why, the Bullet Club, when they did what they did, went with an NWO style just because of how popular it was, because of Hall and because of Nash and the Click and everything else. So it's the impact that these 4 guys have had in ring and out of ring. Because like what you just mentioned shows me that Triple H has always had his ear to the business and could sense when times and things were going to change. And obviously the regime before that, before him taking over now, he was so senile and old, he didn't know what was happening. So Triple H coming in and being able to do what he's done, goes back to then. And then you have Shawn Michaels, who, some might say he's the greatest of all time. I wouldn't go that high. But I mean, like all 4 guys have just been, all 4 guys changed this business forever and are continuing to change this business forever.
I thought I'd educated you better than that, Andy. Good grief.
He's top 5.
One thing, before we get Chris started, the one thing that Chris brought up that like blew my mind was that was the last night that we saw Razor as Razor and Diesel as Diesel. I mean, we saw the fake gimmicks, but I didn't realize, because when they came back, they were Hall and Nash.
Yep.
Yeah.
May 19th, 1996 was on a Sunday. The very next night, May 20th, Scott Hall climbs the barricade in Monday Nitro, interrupts the match, and says, "You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here," and set the wrestling world on fire. I truly believe, Jared, I truly believe that as monumental as Hulk Hogan's heel turn was, that really formed the NWO, and as monumental as the Montreal Screwjob was and what that did in the world of wrestling, arguably some people say that created the Attitude Era. I truly believe the curtain call is the most important moment in the history of professional wrestling. What say you?
I think Hulkamania. I think Austin 316. I think the curtain call. And maybe Hulk Hogan turning. It's between those 4, somewhere in there.
Okay. Andy, being the young pup, what say you?
I mean, it's hard. It'd be hard to argue against it being that. Obviously with Hulkamania being what it was, and Austin 316 and Austin being probably the biggest draw in professional wrestling history, to the whole Attitude Era, just in general with Austin and Rock and Triple H and Shawn. But those moments come. A lot of those moments come from this moment.
Yep.
And so I think it all leads back to the curtain call. So I would agree with you probably.
Oh, and the last thing that nobody ever brings up that was a big factor in the history of wrestling were those Die Rocky Die chants at Survivor Series and the fire that it lit underneath the Rock's hind end.
Yep.
That was a big moment.
Yeah. It's huge. They tried to shove the blue collar baby face down everybody's throat, and it didn't work. And
they tried it a couple years later with Roman, and it didn't work. Who would have thought?
Runs in the family.
Never learn. Some people just never learn.
Oh my goodness, that's true. Some people never learn. That is right. All right. Well, we hope that you have learned a little something on this episode of Squared Circle Radio, especially if it's your first time being with us. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We would appreciate that so very much.